For us to have a government, basically, we must have a running cost. We must have a treasury, to maintain the activities of government. And the government must present a budget in order for the people to be in tune with what the programs of governments really are like. And that's where you have year in, year out, national budgets, state budgets. It can even trickle down to family and individual budgets. But today, we're going to be looking at the borrowing plan of Nigeria and finding a way to close the gap on the deficit that we're having. Basically, you understand that we're having some infrastructural deficit, and the degeneration of our polity in this regard is quite alarming, and there is need for us to go halfway and rescue it from collapse. And that's where we look at the rising debt of Nigeria that gradually gets over 87 trillion naira. And of course, looking at the plan by the government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that said that he has inherited a borrowing plan from the previous administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari. And the borrowing plan will take a chunk of 8.7 billion US dollars, and also a chunk of 100 million pounds, 100 million pounds. And there's an additional loan. Well, you ask me, I have a seasoned analyst in the studio, a political scientist that will be giving us some scientific thoughts as a result of generating policies and how we can create a positive vibe in that direction, to bring about a lean budget in our humongous budgets we keep having. And he is a lecturer at University of Benin, like I said, from the Department of Political Science, Neville Obakedo. It's always awesome to have you join us on our programs, Neville.
Thank you for having me. Good morning, viewers and listeners at home.
You understand quite all right the challenges we have with our revenues, Neville. You understand also quite all right the need for us to have a lean government in order to cut down costs. But what are your thoughts along this, where the president is saying that he inherited a borrowing plan that must be executed to the letter? And of course, the Speaker of the House of Reps, Tajuddin Abbas, read it on the floor of the House. But I want to see your thoughts on this.
Well, first and foremost, we need to understand what we mean by borrowing plan. A borrowing plan is a deliberate monetary policy of government, monetary stroke fiscal policy of government that spells out clearly how government will borrow to finance the budget and to engage in capital projects and the processes to be followed in repaying such loans that the government will incur. In every fiscal year, the borrow plan is always captured in the appropriation bill, which will later transmute into appropriation act. The question is, the borrow plan that the APC-led government of President Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu is about to implement, is it in line with the law? The answer is no. Why did I say it's not in line with the law? Or in line with our financial law? The reason is because of the paragraph, the opening paragraph of the letter of Mr. President to the House of Reps that says that the government want to implement a borrow plan that his predecessor put in place. How did they put it in place? It was approved by the Federal Executive Council on May 15, 2023, less than 2 weeks before the end of that administration. The Federal Executive Council now approved a 2022 to 2024 borrowing plan. And we're already in 2023. It goes to show that they were empowering the administration, the Buhari administration, to even borrow retrospectively. by that borrow plan. Now, this is another government, even though it is a PC-led government. And those who are working with Mr. President are supposed to guide Mr. President about the regulation governing the fiscal policies of government. Now, that decision that the president referred to is not a law, it's not an executive order that the president is compelled to obey. It was just a decision of an executive council that its lifespan expired before May 29. And now the president is referring to it. If Nigerians that are experts in financial law matters, if they understand the intent and the content of the letter of Mr. President, they're supposed to take him to court and take the National Assembly to court if they go ahead to approve the document. Because the president has presented the budget before the National Assembly. Is that borrow plan there? If it is not there, the president cannot execute any financial borrow plan in the name of the Federal Republic of Nigeria without approval from Parliament. And in that case, it must be contained in the fiscal policy of 2024.
I take exception to what you just said concerning the president failed in law. But, well, you are not a lawyer the last time I checked. And I think you lack the strength in that veracity to say that. But again, let's tear it in shreds. Looking at what you said concerning the 2022 to 24 borrowing plan of the federal government. Now, this happens to have been started by the previous administration of the President Muhammadu Buhari. Now, what makes you think it doesn't carry the import of the law when basically the letter was also read on the floor of the House of Representatives, and that's a way to notify the legislature of the need of the executive to embark on the execution of that policy? It's already a policy, and so what makes you think it's not an authorized document?
Talking about whether I'm a lawyer or I'm not a lawyer, I've never told anyone that I'm a lawyer, whether during personal interaction or during this forum or in other fora, because it will be impersonation to do so. But I do know that the law that we practice is rendered in English language. And apart from the fact that there are certain legal terminologies that are couched in Latin masses, everything, including the law that is being interpreted by the judiciary, they are written in black and white for anybody who is knowledgeable.
Okay, but your bone of contention is that it didn't go through the legislative house.
I'm committed.
The bone of contention is that it did enjoy a robust deliberation by the legislature. But basically, is it not enjoying it now? So what makes the difference?
I'm coming to that. You know, we have come to this station to discuss the issue of Onogen, and sometimes I came here on several occasions with legal practitioners, and I told them what was going to be the end of Onogen, even though I was not a lawyer, even though they had a contrary view. What I said was what came to pass. Then we have discussed here about election, presidential election, National Assembly election. My direction, my reasoning turned out to be in line with the reasonings of the justices of either the Court of Appeal or the Supreme Court.
Because you're a scientist, a researcher.
So the issue of spending money on behalf of a state government, the issue of spending money on behalf of a local government, and the issue of spending money on behalf of a nation like Nigeria, no one person, a group of persons can spend money that is not budgeted for. No one person in these three levels of government can also borrow money in the name of federal local government or state government and federal government without the involvement of
the National Assembly. Which exactly the president is doing.
Now, bringing the application to borrow money before the National Assembly. There's no problem with that.
No problem at all.
Now, the problem is this. Is it captured in the budget? If the president is demanding, according to the letter, is demanding the approval of the loan that he wants to collect from Africa Development Bank, from the World Bank, if he's asking the National Assembly to give him the nod, did he put it in the budget?
Well, those instruments will be determined, and that's why it's going to be enjoying a very robust deliberation.
Yes,
at the National
talking
Assembly.
about the robust deliberation.
But let's leave that. I know you are a scientist. You want to see through, cut through the edges.
Okay.
But let's come back to the Nigerian debt. We have a huge debt of 87.38 trillion naira, and if this pulls through, it's going to add about 7 trillion naira to that old debt. Now, we've always analyzed that there's nothing wrong if a country borrows. At least it's conversant with every country of the world, you know, to embark on this lane. But do you see our huge debt as a humongous debt that should make us not to borrow? Or if at all we have to, what do you see as as a scientist, as the best way at this present level we are in to borrow?
Before I talk about borrowing, let me just say that borrowing generally is one way, is part of the economic system of a country. There are countries, more often than not, including more developed countries, they borrow money
to finance the budgets.
To finance their budget, to carry out capital projects, to resolve or to solve a crisis of national disaster like tsunami, and to be able to revive the economy that is in a state of quagmire or in a state of obtusity or comatose. Now, in the case of Nigeria, do we need to borrow money? It's a big question. Why did I say so? Borrowing is good. Other countries are borrowing and they are using the borrowed loan or money effectively. If Nigeria is going to borrow, we expect that Nigeria should also use the money judiciously. Before I come to give you statistics of the way Nigeria governments have been borrowing money from Obasanjo government to date, let me just give you some information. The former governor of Central Bank of Nigeria, who later became the Emir of Kano, Malam Sanusi Lamido Sanusi, shortly before he was removed as governor of Central Bank, he said that the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, NNPC,
Limited.
And it was not limited at that time.
Then, okay.
And the subsidiaries, they failed to pay or to remit. The money was already with them to remit about $14 billion US to the nation's treasury. As we are still speaking now, that money was never remitted. If the money were to be recovered by government, if government is not complicit in the non-remittance of that money, if the money were to be recovered and put into the coffers of Nigeria government, Nigeria will not be borrowing. That is just a fraction of one of the sectors of the nation's economy. Then, in 2021, towards the end, around October, the Nigeria Extractive Transparency Initiative, NETI, came up with statistics of about 70-something companies, oil companies, operating in this country that were owing the Nigerian government 7.8 trillion. 7.8 trillion naira. Then while Gbajabiamila, the chief of staff to the president, now was still as speaker, they set up a panel, House of Representative panel, to investigate the non-remittance. As we speak, that money has not been remitted. So, yet, that is still a fraction of the sectors of the national economy where Nigeria government is expecting revenue. It goes to show that if the capacity of the Nigeria state to extract resources from industries that operate here, if the capacity is strengthened, and persons that put themselves in the position of the state or in position that are stronger than the state, if they allow the state to utilize its resources, Nigeria will not borrow.
Basically, you just enumerated the aspect of corruption, in the system, and what has actually transpired in our economy being degenerated to this extent.
Yes.
There have been leakages, there have been loopholes, and there is need for the government to look into that instead of always being on a fast lane to go on borrowing.
Yes.
They should look into that.
Yes.
To kind of but again, let's guide you with what was said by the International Monetary Fund, that Nigeria needs in dollars about $3 trillion to close the gap on its infrastructural deficit. And this $1 trillion, it needs it urgently. So what does that tell you? Doesn't it not show that there's need for the government to quickly look into that direction and see how it can survive the infrastructure?
Before we talk of before we talk of the IMF and whatever they are suggesting for Nigeria, or whatever they are trying to compel Nigeria to do, I just mentioned the non-remittance of certain amount of money that were accrued to the government of Nigeria.
Yeah.
And the money was raw cash available to those companies, but never remitted. You are also a living witness to the fact that since the beginning of this democratic governance, the Nigerian government have been receiving tranches of Abacha loot. The late General Sani Abacha, former late head of state. If you assemble what have been taken from Abacha's family, or from what have been repatriated from Nigeria from outside Nigeria to Nigeria in the name of Abacha loot, if you assemble everything, it will be more than $1 trillion. $1 trillion US. If you convert it to Nigerian naira, it will be about 3.something trillion naira. Now that is by the way. The reason why I am of the opinion that the capacity of the state needs to be strengthened, because if Nigerians can collect money in the name of Nigeria after 6 or 4 years and all those other taxes on operational businesses in Nigeria, and the money is with some persons, and the money was not remitted, and there's no punishment. If Nigeria now borrow money, and the money now arrives in Nigeria, how do you now account for that money? When there are other people sitting on the money that we were supposed to account for, and there's no accountability. So, borrowing in the name of Nigeria, where accountability is hanging the balance, raises fundamental question about whether the money will actually be used for what is going to be meant for or not. That's one. Number two, from 1999 to this period, over 20 years now, every government that comes will campaign with Benin Abuja Road. This Auchi Benin Abuja Road. They will campaign with it that when we are elected, we are going to tar the road. As a matter of fact, if you check various budgets, you will see that the road has been captured there. Maybe another government will come and say we want to revalue the contract. I don't pray you travel by that road. I don't pray you travel. If you want to go to Abuja, I pray you go by air. If you travel by that road, you will now know that there's no accountability. Because despite all the budgetary allocation to the Ministry of Works, or Federal Ministry of Works, and the contractor you see there periodically on the road has not been better than what it was before the contract was awarded the first system. If you pass Edo State part of the road, you pass Kogi State part of the road, you pass Abuja part of the road. The story is the same.
Exactly the need why even the IMF.
So coming to the issue of IMF.
Okay.
Coming to the issue of
but before you get there,
yes.
to set the record straight,
yes.
the IMF gave a 30-year plan
yes.
that Nigeria government would need about $3 trillion in a 30-year plan to close the infrastructural deficit. But again, the challenge is, should this 30 years plan, carry an import of borrowing, or should it be an opportunity to deepen the revenue, indigenous revenue accruing from the country?
You see, the problem with Nigeria and Nigeria leadership is that where the IMF or the World Bank suggests to Nigeria what should be done about the economy, about infrastructure.
Because you just said it about the infrastructural deficit.
Yes.
You made mention of some rules.
You will see that the leaders will be in a haste.
They have an appetite to do that.
To go and get the money for the project. Now, who says that a nation state cannot look inwards and build its infrastructure?
Improve on its revenue?
Yes. Who says that a nation state cannot look inward? In this case, the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and do what they call domestic planning, instead of always waiting for some persons in New York or Washington to be telling them, Nigeria, this is what you need. Nigerians know what they need. As a matter of fact, there's what we call National Development Plan of Nigeria, where the short-term plan of what Nigeria needs is there, the medium-term plan of what Nigeria needs in all ramifications, they are there, the long-term plan of what Nigeria needs, they are out there. What stopped Nigeria government from implementing that? Why waiting for IMF to say 30-year plan? Have we executed our 5-year plan? Have we executed our 10 to 15-year plan? Have we executed 15 to 20, 25-year plan before we now wait for the World Bank to IMF to say Nigeria needs this? Are we not aware that we need them? Our leaders who travel to Europe, America, and other places, don't they see the infrastructural development? Can they engage themselves in what they call peer review? You don't mention of the infrastructural deficit we have by giving examples of the roads.
Yes. So if that comes to light, if the credit institutions really do that for the country, don't you think that will go a long way to also, bring respite in the direction of motorists and, of course, people that live in those axes?
Nobody has said that infrastructural development, if Nigeria government backs on it, will not make life better and meaningful for our people. But the source of the journey, the source of the information, yes, that says go this way, and you know that
it's what you are against.
Yes. You know that, as they will say that there's no Father Christmas in the United States, but even if there's Father Christmas in the United States, there's Father Christmas here. As I used to see people, you have Father Christmas this period now.
You mean Santa Claus?
Yes. Yes, Santa Claus or Father Christmas, anyone you want to call it. That the children believe that as they are going to see Father Christmas will just dish out something to them. That is, the Father Christmas is a very magnanimous personality who visits communities, localities every Christmas period and dish out things to
blesses them with good tidings.
Yes. They are not, the children may not be sensible to know that their visit to Father Christmas costs the parents something. They don't believe that, hey, I went to see Father Christmas hugged me.
And it came freely from Santa Claus.
Yes. They don't know that it costs their father something, their parents something to get to that stage. Now, in the same vein, when IMF is suggesting to you, you need $3 trillion to bridge the gap of infrastructural deficit in your country for a period of 30 years. That is Nigeria. What are the conditions?
All right, thank you. A whole lot has been said here, and don't forget we have been on this journey of Nigeria's borrowing plan, and the 2022 to 2024 borrowing plan being spoke about by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, that he said he inherited from the previous administration, has been a crux of what we're looking at. But we're going to be taking a short break, after which we continue the conversation.
TMI, every opinion counts.
While we had a break, we were opportunity to be joined by a seasoned public affairs analyst, a legal practitioner, a human rights activist, a clergyman, and he is the senior pastor of Faith Pillars Gospel Center, and he is Dr. Patrick Awosage. Thanks for coming, Dr. Patrick.
Thank you for having me.
Good morning, we've been on this road to salvage the country from the huge or humongous debt that we have found ourselves. Today we have about a standing debt of 87.38 trillion naira, and the borrowing plan of the government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu that carries an import of about 8.7 billion US dollars and 100 million pounds. If it's cased through, it will add an extra 7 trillion naira to the existing debt. How does that make you feel? Is it like respite coming in direction of the populace of Nigeria?
Thank you very much. Like I've often said, borrowing is not the problem.
Okay.
Every instrument of government and agencies of government could survive by borrowing. But borrowing for the reasons that are not that clear to the average person is what I consider a problem. Because I honestly believe if we look at back in the days in the World War time, we know the Marshall Plan, which over 400 billion were expended in reconstructing the whole of Europe. We won't say that was wrong, and we saw how it has turned out again. And again, from 1960 to date, it's on record that we have over $500 billion that have gotten into us from crude oil. So if we are considering that, just supposing that looking at the nations of Europe that have been resuscitated after the war, and compared to a nation who have just received and keep receiving, and we're still talking about borrowing. Nigeria have no business borrowing if things have been done the way it ordinarily should have been done. But again, if you look at the new president, we cannot blame him. He is a seasoned accountant, and he had made so much of debt on ground. And
that his administration inherited.
So if I jump into the ring and start saying or go around saying, why should he borrow? There's nothing on ground for him, and we cannot hold him.
Will it not be wrong for you to say there's nothing on the ground for him? What about the removal of fuel subsidy?
The removal
that has been said has generated in trillions, or is that just a trick?
You see, the major problem is corruption, like you and I know. Now, the whole subsidy talk, a whole lot of things that are not even clear to him. The more you look, the less you see. So these are some of the issues surrounding some of these, and the cuts in revenue. You see, we have a lot of loss of revenue, diversion of funds, a whole lot of things.
As a lot of corruption.
They just give you
a lot of corruption.
Absolutely.
That is unchecked.
That is unchecked, but then we say they are checking. But what I'm trying to say now, a man can't sit back there and say, I'm going to handle all of this all by myself. You need to see how you can fine tune. When he said subsidy is gone, he was looking at it from an angle, you know. The shenanigans around this whole operation, don't just wait for you to grind them. Just find a way to fight back. Like they keep saying corruption, we always fight back. And that's what we are seeing. So for him to go back and say, well, let's borrow more money, I don't see anything wrong in borrowing. But where we begin to see things wrong with him borrowing is when those monies are not plowed. And
you said again, you still have the floor, you said again, just like what Neville Obagado also said, that there is need for us to look inwards and block the leakages.
Absolutely.
You also made mention of the fact that there have been appropriation of funds, and that as a result of that, we are where we are. Exactly. But we have a president, and does it not wow you? Does it not really call for attention and emphasis that the government should not just sit on its hands, but rather check anything that has to do with people that are causing these leakages in governance? Now, a lot of persons have also said that instead of removing fuel subsidies so quickly, why don't you look at the need to find a way to arrest or bring these perpetrators to book that are really, you know, diverting these funds accruing to fuel subsidy? Now, it seems in Nigerian government, it seems that we, instead of us to tackle an issue headlong, we just leave it home dry.
The challenge is, you know, we're talking about litigation. Convicting and prosecuting someone or trying to find, these are issues. You know, it becomes so doubting to even get a conviction. You know, they will tell you it's business and it's transactional and it was signed and this was approved and that, you know, a lot of paper flying back and forth.
But there's the need to look at how to make it work. Because since they find it easy to borrow money quickly, to get money to execute loans, they should also find it easy to look at the need to block those leakages. Because we continue to have this challenge in governance because some persons fail to act. And if we continue to fold our arms not acting, then we'll continue to have this humongous debt.
You know, the challenge I have, or he is going to have, you are looking at it from a sole or a limited liability company, maybe where you have a couple of directors or a sole proprietor business. This is Nigeria, and this is a government.
Are you saying that he's been overwhelmed?
We're not overwhelmed. What I'm trying to say, there are laid down procedures. You know, you can't just wake up and say, this is how I want to go about it. You could say that.
Are they not supposed to be laid down procedures before even the fair subsidy is removed? If we can take that or excuse that, why excuse it from the aspect of getting these perpetrators? Because you said you said litigations, you know, there could be some Herculean task in doing that. But it falls on, it behoves the government, you know, to find a way to solve the misery.
Okay, let's
and that's why we have people who we believe that you know, has been able to set up an economic team to tackle this issue. So there shouldn't be an excuse.
Okay, that's can I answer you? Now, what you are saying now is that, okay, the president should go, let's say XYZ. Philip, you seem to be the one that have been fingered at, have been perpetrating this act. Oh, Philip, we get you picked up, we arrest you, we do a lot of things against you, and we are going to do that. Then Philip still reserved the right for his lawyers to come up and say, no, we're not going to go that way. We go to look at what I did. I work within the space of my office, and I was working. I was dictated to, and it's going to be linking here and there.
So what you're saying, there's not going to be a quick fix it?
It's not. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Nigerians are very smart people, you know. They don't work like that. That's the challenge you have. You don't find one person coming out. Look at all the corruption crisis and litigation. It's either here or there, and something along the line. We talk of you know, contract splitting, and somebody went to Supreme Court. I don't want to mention names now, you know, and the Supreme Court now heard that there's nothing to law. They are finding technicalities, like the one you always talk about. You like that aspect. So they have ground to say, well, this is the position. We exploit this part. And some could even keep you in court to just delay your government and delay the work. So instead of chasing after a few folks that are causing trouble, why not find alternative ways?
Or remove what encourages them to do that.
You get it. So that's basically how leadership will go. And you cannot continue to fight, like we've seen in the past administration, trying to back and forth, you know. It doesn't work that way. Okay. Leadership and governance is bigger than the so-called problem. So you should find a way and choose the lesser evil and navigate through easily. I think that's basically how I see it.
Do you concur with what he said? Because you also made mention of leakages. My mind is on that. How do we block it?
You see that we have a civilian rule in Nigeria as distinct from democratic governance. Because where there's democratic governance, there is rule of law. And no man, no one person or group of persons can be greater than the law or greater than the country. So because we don't have democratic rule,
we don't have democratic rule?
We don't have democratic rule in the sense of democracy. Oh. That's why I said we have civilian rule.
Okay.
Yes. And I said where there's democratic governance, the rule of law is paramount. All the actors in the political process, they tremble and bow before the law, because the law will be no respecter of persons in that situation. And I thank God that my co-discussor is a lawyer. Now, talking about leakages, if Nigeria will not face those who are enemies within this country, who are plundering the resources of this country, then Nigeria will continue to borrow. Nigeria will continue to wallow in degenerating.
Are you trying to make be a prophet of doom?
No, it's a question. You asking me whether
I got scared when you started cursing.
No, it's not the cause. No,
but you said if.
Yes, I said
it's conditional.
Not the cause, yes.
But can't you just make that condition and make it very, very comfortable for?
Okay, if you want me to make it
for us here and the viewers.
Okay, just let me do it this way now. During the government of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, this issue of fuel subsidy came up.
Yes.
And a committee was set up by the House of Representatives. The House of Representatives discovered that one transaction between 24th and 25th, within 24 hours, of January 2011, because the investigation was in 2012. Government of Nigeria, Office of the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation, paid for one transaction for fuel subsidy. He paid for it 128 times.
Wow.
And the amount was 999 million. Let me say it again. One transaction, one subsidy, fuel subsidy transaction. That, let's say, one contractor just did that transaction. The government of this country, the government of Nigeria, paid for it 128 times, and the amount of that transaction was 999 million. Okay, multiply 999 million times 127 times, because it's supposed to be one transaction. So if you minus one from it, now 999 million times 127 times. Tell me the amount.
Okay,
that is the one that was discovered.
Okay,
from that time till now, they are still talking about this fuel subsidy. Even in this government, they are still talking. If they will say today there's fuel subsidy have been removed, they will say there's fuel subsidy is back. We don't really know what is going on.
I'm getting the nudges that we'll be joining Abuja Network Center very shortly. But before you go on, can you quickly react to that?
Now look at it. I appreciate the fact that figures are turned out for us to know that this is what happened. But we must critically understand certain things. You think one single contractor did that? It's a collaboration of some big wigs within the system. So that's basically what we are talking about. Now, trying to get that contractor now, like he just mentioned, it's linked to someone. Now, why not prosecute him? Then you will not discover a lot of papers coming out. And those folks behind him start blocking. That's the corruption we are talking about.
128 times.
Yes.
In one transaction.
That's even mind. That's even mind. So it will shock you, jaws will drop when you hear some of the havoc that have been done. The corruption is so, I don't know how.
But some have said that government seems to be complacent.
They're not complacent, they are accomplices. That's my thoughts. You cannot say they are complacent, they are accomplices. So if your agencies and folks within your space, you can't tell me things are going wrong. Okay, but you seem not to understand.
But can you say that of the administration of President Bola Tinubu? Are you not sure that he's getting ready?
He's just coming in.
To really, he's just coming in.
He's just coming in
after 100 days in office.
100 days will come on. See,
May 29 till now.
Yeah,
that's a huge number of days for anyone that is serious to govern to make some changes.
I disagree. We're talking of leadership. We're not talking of just making pronouncements and statements back and forth. We're talking of checking through records and knowing who is here and what's going on.
So how long is it going to take?
It doesn't have to be that long, but I'm saying 100 days like you are speculating now is rather...
It's over 100 days.
Or whatever. I think we should still hold on. Yes, I feel we are so much in a hurry.
Okay.
And that's the way we drive on the road. You can see, we should hold on and calm down. Leadership is not all about talking around. It's not about making all the sound words back. You need to study the problem critically. For a change to come, I know that those that are perpetuating, they are political jobbers, those that are within the space. Anybody coming up, Dr. Navi wants to be governor, everybody jump around him, we are with you. The same set of people. That's what you should understand. It's only the governor that changes, not the shenanigans, not the structure, not those guys around the government. So they are big time guys. They have their structure well deep-seated. They have money, they have all the influence, they can get a whole lot of folks around. They can even start an impeachment process on presidents and governors. So these people, you call them the cabals. You could. That's basically what they are. So if these are, as Ekume said, Nigeria, I don't want to agree with him. He said Nigeria is a captured state in that sense of being captured by these shenanigans, these guys that are so much, so influential. They have all the powers. They can do this. They can do. When you say influential, it's not as if they're going to, like he said, we should get them. You can't. There are people you don't just. I know the law permits you. They are procedure. They will go to court on what is not. I remember Saraki was being accused back and forth. You saw how they were going to court.
Okay.
They were arguing one motion to Supreme Court and coming back. At the time you get tired, everybody go home to sleep. Okay. So what I am saying, it's not about a president coming in now. What are you doing? What are you doing? He needs time to look at these things. Okay. Yes, it needs more time.
Okay, let's get your reactions. I believe you were unfinished at your point at the time. in 2 minutes.
How can you say 2 minutes? 2 minutes will not be enough for me to.
We have to join our
In the first instance, this is democracy. This is civilian rule, supposed democratic rule, where there are processes to be followed, even legal processes, electoral processes, and so on, legislative processes. Now, what the point I'm trying to make is that Nigeria as a nation state should not be talking of having strong men to be their leaders. They should have strong institutions that will checkmate those who conduct businesses.
We've always said that in a song,
the
but the
Nigerian
challenge
state,
here is how do we make that strong institution?
How do we make that strong
Yes,
institution?
we've always said it in the song.
How we make that strong institution?
Okay.
How we make the strong institution is by first of all getting strong men. We have in Rwanda just now.
When you say strong men, can we say we have that in the president of the president, in the person of the president?
If we say strong men, well, the president is a strong man. The president is a very strong, not just strong man, it's a very strong man.
So he can make it work.
Yes, okay. I believe.
Okay.
But as a strong man, if you want to ensure that the capacity of the Nigerian state is enhanced to the extent that those who plunder the state, no matter how well entrenched they are in the system, they are brought to book, or that their networks, they are dislocated and reduced to the barest minimum. In that case, Mr. President, we have to apply what Niccolo Machiavelli called the principles of the prince.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So let's get your submission on that as we wrap up on this segment.
That's what exactly you want to
concerning how to navigate through the
like
gap.
I said, there are three basic things that the military, when they want to get into, they look, you first of all identify the problem.
Yeah.
Isolate the problem. Annihilate the problem.
So we've already identified the problem.
We have identified.
Yeah, but we are isolated.
The isolation process is what
is ongoing.
Is ongoing.
Is it ongoing? Has it started?
It has started. They don't have to see. It's only in Nigeria you investigate on the pages of newspaper. Before someone is doing something, they start going back and showing you on social media platform. Ideally, that's not what should. They can't come. A government business shouldn't be what. I know you have freedom of information bill. We're talking of in instruments, and there's some, some confidentialities.
Okay,
in what they're doing.
Okay, you spoke about identification, then, isolation.
When that isolation process is finally done with, then you begin to annihilate. It could be by way of, getting prosecution, by sacking.
What about if it happens to be some members in the cabinet of the president?
That's what I'm saying. That's why you have to identify.
Will it not be a difficult task even within the party?
Wait, see,
is that not why we've always been having this challenge?
I said that
in
before.
governance.
He mentioned something. He's a strong man. If he's not going to do it, that is not willing to do it. Okay. Are you getting it? So I'm not in him. So if he's going to do it, he has the capacity to do whatsoever he so wish to do.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Pleasure.
Patrick Awosage, legal practitioner, and of course, thank you, Neville Obakedo, a political scientist, lecturer at University of Benin of the Political Science Department. Well, there's so much you can take on this segment.